Klanyaku this morning. We've got 2 passengers, some cargo, good weather, and we're getting ready to go here at about 8 o'clock, almost 9 o'clock. Where's this? Good morning, 7 Papa Charlie Mike. Charlie. There's traffic. Charlie Mike Charlie is taxiing to holding point 04 for departure to Klanyaku. Okay, I'm clear. Okay, so we got a good morning of weather. There's no wind, clear skies, nice cool temperature this morning. Expecting a really nice day with weather, and should be a fun one. We're headed out to Klanyaku, which is our furthest airstrip that we service from Masera. It's about a 35-40 minute leg, and dropping off some passengers there who will be staying for about a year. Some pastors. So we'll get set up here at our home base, get going, and see what it's like out there. Lights are on, instruments are set. Tracking system is, or tracker is pressed, and we're good to go. Takeoff time is noted, 7 o'clock Zulu time, so it'll warm up a little more and brief for our abort. Abort point is the second marker. I'll abort if I don't get a good power check or speed check by the last arrow. Airborne past the abort point with an engine failure. 6 Gs, landing at 75. Grass will be left onto the ag fields. Straight ahead across the river, the police field to the right, then gas will go on. Yellow pump, change tanks. Red pump overtakes, continue with gab. Mayday, mayday, mayday. For landing, guts, pump off, selector or flaps is required. Master for touchdown and get out. Okay, so I'm expecting 35 knots by the last arrow. And brief my options for off-field landings. We're letting it get a little warmer, and then we're good to go. Looks like it's warmed up enough, and we are ready. Time passengers, brakes, flaps. We are good to go. Business traffic. Charlie Mike Charlie is rolling 04 for departure to Klanyaku. All right. Power check. Speed check. Continue. Climbing out 88. There's my field. There's another field straight ahead. Okay, 400 foot. Power set. Set in fuel flow for the climb. About 121 or so for this climb out. Okay, we'll do. Okay, flaps are up, cow flaps are up, power is set, mixture is set, engine instruments are checked, nav instruments are checked. All the one, yeah. Performance instruments checked. Lookups are secure. Passengers are checked. Radio call. This air approach, good morning, 7 Papa Charlie Mike Charlie. This air traffic, Charlie Mike Charlie is airborne from Bird's Nest at on the hour. We are climbing 115 for Tanyaku, estimating 45. We'll be through center line in the next 2 minutes. Okay, so they are unmanned this morning, a little bit early for the approach airspace to be open. Okay, I'm on track here, climbing at about 95 or so. That's a good speed for a cruise climb. Engine's looking good, temps pressures are good, cylinders staying cool enough, and everything's good. Satellite tracker report okay, and continue to climb. It's a little bit hazy this morning, but that should normally be a little better once we're in the mountains away from the lowlands. So we're climbing up to 115 through 7,000 foot now. Okay, as we continue in the cruise, I'm going to switch off and switch back on before top of descent and go through the arrival procedures and process with you guys. So I'll check back in a little later. Okay, so starting descent for Tanyaku, and I'm going to get myself ready and brief on Tanyaku. To get to Tanyaku, we've kind of got to go a little bit of a side step. Tanyaku is in a valley, and just to get into the valley, you kind of got to go a little bit to the south, go down into it, and then follow the valley up in a more of a northeasterly direction to get to the airstrip. So the airstrip is found at the end of the valley, and it's a really interesting one. It's I would say it's probably our most technical airstrip here in Lesotho. You can land two directions. If you land 2-8, which is slightly downhill, that's probably the most technical landing that we have, just because you really have to be precise and on the numbers to make it in. And that's just because it's a really tight little turn onto final approach with some higher ground that you've got to kind of skirt around, and so you find that you're still turning as you get onto the threshold. You're still kind of turning onto final approach, and then it's a slightly downward sloping runway in that direction, so it's always hard to hit the mark on a downward sloping runway, because as you flare, the runway starts to move away from you more as it slopes. So it's really tricky to get onto the spot. So those things combined just add together to make Tanyaku really challenging, especially landing downhill. If we land uphill, which I suspect I will be able to do today, uphill is not as technical, but it is a go critical runway, and the abort point is pretty early on final approach, so really as you're turning final approach, you need to be making the call if you're going to land or not, because a couple of seconds after that you are past past the point where you can get out of the valley. So you really have to make the call early. I usually only do the uphill landing or the go critical landing on a day when the wind is calm, like today, and provided there's no one too close to the runway that would run onto it during final approach, or animals or anything, then if possible I'm going to go with the uphill. It tends to be a little bit easier on the airplane. Landing on an uphill slope is just better for the brakes, and landing downhill is always just really hard on the brakes, and you've got to maximize the performance of the airplane to get it stopped within the safety margin. So what I plan to do is go overhead the strip, take a look at the wind, take a look at how many people and animals are close to the runway, and if I have less than a couple knots of wind and less than if there's no turbulence and no wind, then I'll probably plan on landing on the uphill runway. I'm going to just take a break from briefing and continue with my descent checks here. My selector is going to stay on the left, mixture is set, power is set, cowl flaps are adjusted, closed now for the descent. Altimeter is, I don't have a QNH, but it's usually a couple millibars higher here in the mountains. Passengers and seatbelts are snug and secure, they're all good. Okay, so let's have a more thorough briefing of Penyaku. We've got it's a class 3 runway. We can land both directions. Length is 1,885 foot, so not 574 meters. Not super short, but it's also at 7,700 foot altitude, so that has an influence for sure. 3% slope, which is a downward slope on 2.8, and surface is rough grass, little bits of gravel as well. My abort is turned in final approach for runway 10, or down and braking by the third marker for runway 28. My notes, I've got vehicles commonly on the runway. There's a road that goes kind of through the runway. This is a very common airstrip to have animals close by grazing and people, just because it's the clinicers on one side and the airstrip, or the village rather, is on the other side, so people are always crossing the runway. Okay, but I've briefed, I'm happy with what I see. Start to get my power back here. We're getting close to Penyaku now. It's really hard to see until you're right on top of it, just with the haze and probably the camera angles and perspectives this morning. But I'm getting myself set up. If I take the uphill option, I'm going to be starting the descent as soon as I'm over the runway, so I can use this time now to set up with 10 degrees of flaps. I'm going to wait to slow down before I add more flaps. I'm going to get my mixture set. Selector is on both, aux pump is off. Okay, we're slowing down into the white arc. It'll allow me to take 20 degrees of flaps. Get nice and get it slowed down a little, give me time to see what's happening. Alright, you can see the village in front of me there. I see some smoke on the ground. There's not even any wind this morning, which is awesome. That means I can take the uphill option, which will be great. Okay. Okay, so this valley to my right is a closed valley, as is the one to my left. So my turnaround is behind me, the direction I've come from. But I'm just going to fly over, make sure I'm looking at the windsocks, checking the runway's clear. There's always people next to it. I see some people now, but yeah, it looks good. It's clear. There's a couple of people busy crossing, but they should hear me and move off. Wind is calm. It looks awesome for the uphill landing. So I'm going to go ahead and let flight follower know that I'm landing. There's an animal crossing the runway now, but we'll just have to double check that on final approach, make sure it's clear. Otherwise we're abort. We're going to go down into this valley here. Airstrip windlass has reefed. Abort is turn in final if ground speed is more than 80. If approach is unstable or something on the runway, I will abort. And abort will be a right hand turn into the valley option to the south. Alright. Gonna get nice and close to this valley on the right here. The closer I get to it, the more space that gives me to turn to the left, so this is looking good. I usually turn over one of these bigger houses here down below me, so that looks good. Everything is nice and stable. Okay, turning nicely in the valley here, and altitude looks good. I've got a reference point of that little ridge over there. There's some paths. Going to be aiming pretty much for that. My base checks, brakes, prop and flaps are checked. And I'm going to get set up for final approach as early as I can. Speed 65, I want 60 on final, so that's good. Flaps are all the way down. Cowl flaps are closed. I've got a green light for landing. Ground speed now 71, that's good. Runway's looking clear. Looks clear, looks clear, looks clear. I'm following this ridge to the left here. Yeah, so looks clear. I'm happy with the wind. And looks clear. I'm turning here. I'm going to have to make a call soon. Ground speed check. Runway's clear. Committed. Someone higher up on the runway, but not at the touchdown zone. Alright, looks good, looks good, looks good. That's a little deep, but I'm happy with that. Full brake in. And we're down. I touched down a little deep there, but with this wind today and all of that, I'm pretty happy with that. I'm actually going to be stopping right here and offloading my passengers. I'm going to turn and just face the aircraft. There we go, that'll be alright. Satellite call, down the ground, lights are off, cowl flaps are open, flaps are up.